This week on Chicago Newsroom 2.0, Sufyan Sohel, Claude Robinson, and Jeffrey Beckham joined the roundtable to discuss the increasing mudslinging amongst political candidates, Chicago's credit rating downgrade, and the state of Indiana's full-court press to woo the Chicago Bears.
Monica Scott from Bally, Chicago is here to discuss the casino's commitment to being a good corporate citizen.
Centers for New Horizons CEO Lakisha McFadden joins us to discuss her organization's commitment to residents on the city's south side.
And CAN TV's chief education correspondent Adrian Segura returns with a new installment of the Education First Report. I'm Monica Rubio.
And I'm Darrious Hilmon. We've put together an incredible hour of news and information that matters most to Chicagoans.
And it all starts right now.
In recent weeks, the Chicago Bears have become the focus of an aggressive recruitment effort by Indiana, raising questions about regional competition, public incentives, and how Illinois leaders, including Governor J.B. Pritzker, are responding to the possibility of losing one of the state's most iconic franchises. And the blame game between the mayor and city council kicks into high gear as the city's credit rating takes yet another hit. And the tone of local political races is growing increasingly more combative. Here in Cook County, tensions between Board President Toni Preckwinkle and her challenger, Alderman Brendan Riley, have escalated, reflecting a broader trend of sharper personal and political attacks. Joining me to assess and opine are roundtable regulars and true friends of CAN TV, Sufyan Sohel, chair of the Cook County Commission on Human Rights, Claude Robinson, president of Onyx Strategic Partners, and Jeffrey Beckham, CEO of Chicago Scholars. Brothers, friends, family members, welcome. Lots to cover, about 18 minutes to do it. Let's go. What's going on? What has been an aggressive week on Indiana's part where what do people say, they're risking it all, it feels like. What is that telling you right now about how states, in this case our neighboring state, is so aggressively competing for major sports franchises, and what does that mean about cost to taxpayers, and who cares? Who wants to take it first?
I mean, I can't. Look, it feels like the modern day economic Hunger Games, right?
Yes.
Like, may the best tax incentive be in your favor. It feels akin to when H2Q and Amazon were looking to place their headquarters there, right?
Yep.
It's more about optics than it really is about jobs or economic impact. And I think that's what we're seeing. Indiana's putting this full court press forward because they're really trying to press the optics game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think about sports and negotiating, oftentimes salaries are negotiated in public to put pressure on those who are going to make the actual decisions. I think
and Indiana's move certainly got Illinois to move in a way it hasn't in months.
Yeah, and I think they're serious. They see the benefit that could happen in an area that needs economic development, and they've given a template for others to see. If you really want something to happen, laws, policies don't have to take a long time. They can get done if you really have the will to do so.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Sufyan? Because I have many.
One, it's to your earlier point, should taxpayers carry the burden for private organizations for them to stay here? I would say no. There's so many other things our tax dollars need to be going towards, like feeding our hungry and housing the unhoused and education and opportunity and job growth. Is our tax dollars really the best use of it is to keep the Bears in Chicago? Maybe not. But I would also argue that the Bears need the name Chicago as much as Chicago needs the Bears. Like there's such deep history and root and love, and sports teams inspire hope and passion. So there's that factor to keep them here as well. So
and before we move on, it's House Bill 910 here in the state last week in Springfield. Representative Justin Slaughter asked a question that I think needs to stay at the top of all these negotiations. What's in it for Black people? And
Did he get an answer?
not a full answer. And I don't think he could get a full answer yet, but as these negotiations are going on, that needs to stay top of mind to everybody, because Black folks, brown folks need to benefit from whatever decisions being made.
No, but to that point, sorry.
No, please.
They always say jobs and economic growth, but they tend to be like seasonal or low
That part,
income,
yes.
all of those, where all these benefits that they say are going
Seem
to
to
come.
only affect the rich families who own the team.
Exactly.
Okay. You mentioned something at the top of this conversation, Jeffrey. Is this truly about economic development? You just threw a pin in some of that thinking. Is it political theater or silly ego?
Yeah, I mean, stadium deals are less about spreadsheets and more about symbolism. And so in my opinion, it's more about ego. I think it's in this time too, when you talk about Illinois and Indiana sitting next to each other as rivals, as red and blue states, as a governor here with possible presidential aspirations, losing arguably the most storied franchise in the history of one of them in the NFL is bad theater, and it's bad across the board, no matter how you cut and slice it. And so it is about ego and about symbolism and the history of the team, I believe, much more than it is about the stadium.
Isn't that the sort of thing that get countries into wars? Just throwing it out there, ego and never mind. I'll move forward. Do sports teams still function as true economic engines for a community? So my question would be for this group of incredible thought partners, what do we truly lose if the Bears go? I mean, and I'm asking this with real earnestness. What really is the loss to the third largest city in the country, where our finances are on the struggle bus? Where there are challenges, where symbols and systems that have worked for or we've been told work for generations don't. Is this not perhaps the time to reimagine all of that and really ask a question that removes ego and pride? What does it mean ultimately to lose a team in their current home? We will never get the Super Bowl to the city. There is nothing in the foreseeable future that tells us they will be going to a Super Bowl. So what exactly is the law? I get the emotion, but from a financial standpoint, you are very smart folks who understand finances. What is lost to this city?
You mentioned Super Bowl, but you have to also, it won't just be the Bears at the stadium. And the NCAA, a lot of other sports, global sports that will be able to come to the city that will bring economic benefits to the city. Hotels, food, all of those type things. If it's not there, you won't draw that scale of audience to it. So it is the Bears, but you got to think wider than that, and I think they are thinking that way as well.
I'd only say that, we're talking 8 or 9 games a year, right? And during that course of time, when people come into Chicago for those 8 or 9 games a year, they're still going to stay in the city. They're going to stay downtown. They're going to spend downtown. On Sunday, they'll go out there, they'll tailgate for the game. But I think most folk need to understand and get it wrapped around their head, unless some Hail Mary happens, using that pun intended, you're going to go to a stadium that's either going to be in Arlington or Hammond. It is the Chicago thing is done. Okay. It's done. I think that's about a wrap, because the Bears have bought the land, $250 million spent. They can build Bears World in Arlington, or they can build a really nice stadium, possibly in Indiana. But this lakefront deal where they won't own the stadium, it'll be a public stadium that they won't be able to generate revenue from. I think that's done. So we just got to wrap our heads around that. But I think ultimately, people, when you get it down to it in nuts and bolts, people are going to continue to question, if you can find billions for a stadium, why not for my block?
Yes.
And there is the question that you have just put on the table brilliantly. What message are voters who are struggling in real time and real life? What does this back and forth between Indiana and Illinois say to those folks who are dealing with unmet need, 2 charter schools closing, transit system without leadership, with crime issues that the federal government's even involved in? What is it saying to them when we, over a team, with all due respect, it is a sports team, where we are talking about this type of money? What should it say to the voters and to the citizens of this city who are the backbone of this city?
I mean, the fact that it's taking up so much news space, more so than all these other challenges that these communities are facing, shows what their priorities are too. We're willing to focus our energy and our time and our creative minds on solving this problem rather than the problems that you're waking up to and dealing with each and every day.
That's unsettling. I have a feeling we'll be talking about this more, but in our limited time, let's move to politics. It feels like everything is politics, at this point, especially in this city at this point. There is escalating vitriol. We've seen some of it from the town halls that CAN TV hosted for the 2nd and 9th. I watched the debate between President Preckwingo and Brendan Riley. The tone, it feels, something feels different, especially here in our local politics. Is this just strong feelings on policy differences, political desperation, the world around us? What's driving what feels like a deeper intensity in these races? Is it that there's so many seats available, or seats that have not been open in decades are not available? What is driving what feels like a real vitriolic kind of Hunger Games approach to politics?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of the above. I think you look at tight races, right? The level of political rhetoric happening around the country in general, where local races now feel like national races.
Yeah. And they have national money.
And they have national money, right? The millions going into these congressional races and seats that have not been open for decades. And so you've got 10, 11, 13 people running for these seats. And so folks are trying to figure out what they can do to one up the other and how can they stand out.
Has this moved into the reality show of politics phase?
No, it hasn't. I think, one, I would push even further and say international money is also being used to influence our politics. But two, people are really caring of what the candidates' ideological and their values are. And when they're seeing stark differences, and even on just one issue or two issues, voters are getting riled up. And I think candidates don't know how to connect in the way that they were able to connect in the past, where they could say a blanket statement and reach half the country with that. And now voters were like, but what about this issue? Where do you stand on this issue?
It's the follow-up questions. Yeah.
And that they don't have, most of them don't have the spine to answer courageously and truthfully. And they're getting frustrated by that, for lack of moral courage.
And that's what we're saying. And I think there is a general, perhaps what I'm saying and not articulating fully, I'm saying perhaps that feeling of how dare you ask me a follow-up question, or this makes me uncomfortable, that's not poll tested, I'm used to answering. In the world that there was cable news and a few things, now you've got podcasts, you've got things happening, folks feeling empowered to ask questions.
Sure. But I would argue it's even more. I think there's a level of shame there too, of like, why am I not brave enough to talk about these issues? Why am I so beholden to some of like these other interests that may be out there that I can't speak my own truths? We've seen people who are standing up for their own truths who are succeeding. You look at Zoran Mamdani, who's able to just be fully authentically himself and won amazingly. But now you see our candidates who are tiptoeing certain lines on different issues. And I think part of their angst is their uncomfortableness with them not being able to even talk the way they truly believe on the issue.
So this is not only constituent, but perhaps self-directed frustration.
Yes.
That makes...
When you question or toe the line of your own values. We were saying...
Choices we're making every day in our own lives, aren't we?
That's right.
My goodness.
And when you see that recoil on that second question, right, the follow-up, it's like, wait, you weren't supposed to ask me that. And it's because inside it's cognitive, it's the dissonance happening that you are seeing, realized in full, in front of cameras.
My goodness. Outside spending, PAC influence, it is both real and imagined. It's real. It is outsized in this cycle. Particularly APAC, and we had questions to the candidates, and their responses were interesting during the 7th and during the 9th and 2nd congressional. Yeah. And I've watched other debates throughout as the question is being asked very directly. Why is this right now, Sufyan, I'm going to start with you. Why is PAC money that's always been around, and specifically APAC, why is it such a flashpoint during this cycle? Why do you think?
People are waking up, right? For 3 years, we've seen children dying in Gaza and around the world often with our own tax dollars being used to perpetuate these crimes. This weekend, we saw attacks against Iran, right, where U.S.-led. We saw 100 plus women killed in a school, again, by U.S. money. People are asking why, one, why is our tax dollars being used to perpetuate these crimes, which a lot of people believe are crimes? Two, why isn't that money being used to help us on the ground here? Again, we're hungry. We don't have homes. We don't have quality education or healthcare. Why aren't we being helped? Why are you spending all your energy and time on this?
Is the focus that we're seeing right now on AIPAC money, is it clarifying the stakes for our voters, or is it at the Tribune's editorial board would like to suggest publicly that it's distracting from policy issues that directly impact districts? Claude?
No, that Tribune article, you could see right through it.
And that was from the full editorial board.
Right, what they were talking about. When I read it, I was like, oh, wow, it's easy to see they want to move past this issue that people are concerned about. And if candidates are receiving money and then they talk about values that are going to help a community, but then AIPAC is focused on their own agenda, it's mixed messages being sent. And then I think constituents want to hear it, and they want to see, are you rolling with them? And if so, I ain't rolling with you. And I think that's why many of the candidates that are being funded are trying to evade the question altogether and looking pretty foolish trying to answer it.
So voters have a reasonable right to ask questions about this, especially against the backdrop of what is actually we can see and feel with our own eyes and spirits happening in this country and around the world.
Yeah, I mean, everything we're talking about, the economic base of it, whether it's the Bears arguing in campaigns, it's the same thing. How are those constituents going to benefit from the leadership of whichever candidate is going to be in office?
Got it. We've got about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to try something here and see if I'm clever enough to do it. The city that is the current home of the Chicago Bears has now had its credit rating downgraded again. To what extent, I'm going to try it this way. It's been downgraded. What should that tell me, the voter, the person living in the city? What is that telling me right now, Jeffrey, that our credit rating has been downgraded and the reasons they gave for the why?
It tells you that credit agencies believe there's instability in our revenue, that there are deficits we need to take care of, and that we have an impasse in being able to pass a budget. It tells you that they don't believe in the fiscal management of, in those running our fiscal responsibilities here in this city. And that's a problem while we're arguing about a stadium.
That you put a bow on that. Any thoughts, gentlemen?
And I do want to say that these structural challenges it's not just happen overnight, right? They're long systems
fair.
But after 6 months, they become your issue.
But then they become yours, and what are you doing to justify it? And no one centers that the implication of this always goes down to the consumer and taxpayers, right? Higher costs to do everything. My property taxes are going to be increased.
This impacts a lot more than we most of us
even
imagine.
Think about,
yes.
Right? And it sucks.
That's a solid. Okay, sucks. What do you have? He has sucks.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And to the point, here are leaders once again, their decisions negatively impacting the residents of the city, and it's time to grow up.
And again, I'm always looking for, as Hillary Clinton recently said in her recently published deposition, I'm always looking for themes and patterns as well. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be, we talk about this, you all here, you're members of the family here, we talk about this a lot on this show. Mm-hmm. There are themes and patterns, no matter, I root for our city, I root for our leadership, but when I'm saying themes and patterns, what would be, in our final 30 seconds or so, what advice would you give to our city leadership in this moment based on everything we just talked about and more?
Mine's real simple. We have to stop planning for now and start planning for now and the future.
Yes,
and our decisions that we make oftentimes are for now and not down the road. Bond market, meters, the whole nine. We can go into it.
Agreed. Yeah. Sufyan.
Asking themselves, who do they truly serve? Are they looking out for the best of the people, or are they looking out for the best of themselves? And kind of, to your point, is it just themselves now, or is it this collective we that they're thinking about?
Got it. Claude, final word is yours.
There are thousands of young people in this city that are looking at you that care about you and want you to succeed, take that to heart and lead.
Okay. Brothers, look, we talk as much as we appear to like and respect each other on camera. It's only because we do off camera. I am so grateful. CAN TV is grateful for your continued leadership. You're not one and done here. You're here a lot. You'll be back again. Thank you for this. It means the world at times like this that we can come together around this table and have a conversation with and for our community. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
On the other side of the break, Monica sits with Bally Chicago Vice President of Community Engagement, Monica Scott, to discuss how the casino plans to put its best foot forward in the city of big shoulders. Stay with us.
Tonight, we're bringing together experts, advocates, caregivers, and older adults to talk honestly about what it means to age in Chicago today.
How do we stay mentally and physically strong as we age? And what can our community do to make aging something we embrace, not fear?
When we start to have mobility changes, that impacts how we live every day.
If they are experiencing signs and symptoms of what could be Alzheimer's disease, what they may tend to do is withdraw from their loved ones.
Just small exercise during commercial breaks. So if you're watching TV for 4, 5, 6 hours a day, when a commercial break comes on, spend 20 seconds or 30 seconds just marching in place or standing up, sitting down.
State of Aging, a community conversation. Tuesday, March 10th at 7 p.m. only on CAN TV 19. Experience the power of community television.
The arrival of Bally Chicago represents one of the most significant economic development projects in the city in decades. A permanent casino and entertainment complex projected to generate jobs, tax revenue, and new investment. But the developments of this scale don't just reshape skylines. They impact neighborhoods, workforce pipelines, and long-term community stability. Supporters argue the project will bring meaningful opportunity and economic growth. Critics raise concerns about crime, gambling, addiction, and whether the economic benefits will truly reach the communities that need them most. Our next guest is helping to lead that community-facing effort. Monica Scott is the Vice President in Community Engagement for Bally Chicago, overseeing outreach, workforce inclusion, strategies, and partnerships designed to ensure that Chicago's residents, particularly those from historically underserved communities, have access to the opportunities this project promises. Welcome to the newsroom, Monica.
Thank you so much, Monica.
So, Monica, the new Bally's development is expected to employ hundreds of Chicagoans. Can you walk us through the types of jobs being created and what you're doing to ensure residents from across the city, especially historically underserved communities, have access to those opportunities?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. And I would like to say that hundreds is actually thousands of new jobs. So with the positions and the growth that we have as we move into our River North location, we're going to expand on every role that we currently have. So when you think about our Medina Temple location, we include human resources, marketing, IT, security. There's such a bevy, everything that it takes to run a job or a career or an opportunity. Beyond that, we're going to grow into other areas. So as you talk about being able to hire from a variety of locations, we have been very intentional about our hiring purposes and our practices. We're proud to say that we have over 80% being local Chicagoans. 75% of our hires that are active now are women. 33% are from socioeconomically disadvantaged locations. And we put a lot of effort and intention into where we source and where we look for and where we share the information about our positions. And so when we talk about what's coming next, we're talking about 500 hotel rooms. So we'll have hotel operations, we'll have theater, we'll have sales, we'll have convention, and we'll have groundskeeping. We'll have so much more expanded food and beverage options. So everything that we have, we're going to go from about 750 to over right at 3,000 positions. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Intention and focus, Monica. I love it. Are there partnerships in place with local workforce organizations, community college, or training programs to prepare Chicagoans for long-term careers within the casino and hospitality industry?
Absolutely. And we started those relationships when we opened the Medina, which will be 3 years this year. And those we need to grow. We've got 750, we need to get to 3,000. And when we look at that, we will be partnering with community colleges. We'll be partnering with technical and trade organizations. We'll be partnering with unions, as well as looking within the community, partnering with organizations that serve specific communities as well as widespread throughout Chicago. And when we do that, we're being, again, very intentional. We're sharing our job fairs, we're sharing hiring opportunities, and we want to make sure that the word gets out. And as we move forward in preparation for this mass hiring that will happen, including massive job fairs that we will host ourselves, we're making sure that that message is getting out to workforce development organizations to ensure that everyone knows what's out there and what's available. One of the questions, if you will allow me, that I do get is, what about under 21? What about 18-year-olds? And as a casino, we're predominantly 21 and older. But as we expand into more food and beverage opportunities, the theater, and when we move in and we have 500 hotel rooms, there will be expanded opportunities and career advancement for even under 21. So 18 to 21 would be welcome at that time as well.
I love the forward thinking and the collaborative efforts with other organizations within the community. Monica, you serve as Vice President of Community Engagement, and part of your work includes charitable giving and nonprofit partnerships. What does meaningful corporate citizenship look like for Bally Chicago?
For me, again, the word intentional comes back. And we focus on local, hyper-local. So when we're looking for organizations to support, we supported over 100 different organizations and sponsorships and volunteerism during 2025. And in doing so, it's important that we are looking within the communities. We do support some of the nationals, but it's really within the neighborhoods, within the community. And how can we show up and be there, whether it's working in a food bank, whether it's doing food service, walking, or whatever it is required that supports that organization. So for me, that's where it's important. And our main focus are on workforce development, which obviously is a huge lift for us. So ensuring that the education and support is there for those who are looking to develop a career or train to be in a profession. But beyond that, women's rights, LGBTQ, anti-human trafficking, and one of the things that you mentioned initially was some concerns about problem gambling. And so we are a huge proponent of Illinois Council for Problem Gaming. We support them both financially as well as through action, hosting many tablings, screening events throughout the year, even on site at the property. So we try and make sure that we're in a healthy environment and make sure that those around us are healthy and prosperous as well.
Again, being intentional with creating that healthy environment. I love it. There's been discussion about how many guests visiting Bally's can extend their experience beyond the casino, supporting nearby restaurants, cultural institutions, and neighborhood businesses. How is Bally's working to connect visitors to other Chicago entrepreneurs?
Well, this is kind of my pride. So Community Rewards campaign is something that we've created here at Bally Chicago. And we work with local merchants, suppliers, and vendors. We partner with them to build a relationship where we offer their services, access, and admissions to those who are our customers and patrons. So those playing with their Bally's reward card can then exchange their Bally bucks that they earn inside the property for services, access, credits outside of our doors. So we have over 30 that are currently participating and probably twice as many in the pipeline as we move forward. So it's something that we're really proud of, and it's something that we support and help promote those local businesses that are nearby or where our customers live and work.
I love it, Monica. Well, thank you so much for making time tonight for the first of what we hope are many conversations that you'll have with our viewers. On the other side of the break, CAN TV's chief education correspondent, Adrian Segura, returns with a new installment of the Education First report that you won't want to miss. Stay with us.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. CAN TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
Got something to say about Chicago? Now's your chance to be heard. Chicago Newsroom 2.0 is launching Opinion, a new segment where everyday Chicagoans take the mic. Whether it's a neighborhood issue that's been ignored, a citywide concern that needs attention, or a fresh idea that could change our city, we want to hear from you. Submit your commentary at cantv.org/opinion. If selected, we'll invite you on air to share your perspective with all of Chicago. Experience the power of community television.
Welcome back. Here now with a new installment of the Education First report, CAN TV's chief education correspondent, Adrian Segura, unpacks the CPS School Board Performance Report Card with board rule editor Maureen Kelleher and Harvard Graduate School of Education's Adam Parrott-Sheffer. Adrian.
Chicago is standing at a historic crossroads as it relates to its public schools. For decades, the mayor picked who sat at the head of the table. But now we're in the middle of a massive experiment, a hybrid board of elected and appointed members. And in just a few months, voters will elect all 21 members of the board of one of the largest education systems in the country. But how do we know if the people sitting at those seats, elected or appointed, are actually doing the work? On this edition of the Education First report, I'm joined by two people who have been grading Chicago's Board of Education like a final exam. Editor of the Board Rule newsletter, Maureen Kelleher, and Harvard University's Adam Parrott-Sheffer. Maureen and Adam, welcome. Let's dive right in. Adam, let's start with you. You've created an annual report card for the board. Most parents get report cards for their kids. Why did you feel the city needed one for the Board of Education?
So that was actually the origin story of it, was I got my kid's report card and was sitting there looking at it and thinking, you know, we spend all this time grading our kids and getting all this information on their learning, and yet there's nothing happening for the people who are actually issuing this, right? And, that kind of started it for us. And I was like, I could actually do that. And, as somebody who ran for the school board, one of the things that I saw was people did not know about the board. People did not know who their person was, or this was even going to be elected, or what even the board did. And so this need to help people know this is the work of the board and this is kind of how we're doing, just felt like a place to lean in and provide a little bit of transparency for our system.
Maureen, you've been tracking how these board members show up outside of the boardroom. Your report shows that between January and September, two board members, board member Boyle and Smith, made 32 visits to schools each, while others were barely hitting double digits. I'm curious, as we're thinking about report cards, why should a parent in Englewood or Rogers Park care about how many schools a board member visits, and does it actually lead to better grades for their kids?
Well, it's very hard to draw a straight line from anything a board member does to better grades for your actual kids, but it is important for school board members to get to know their communities and set foot inside their schools, and that can be really hard to do. I'll just say two things, and then I definitely want to let Adam, who is the keeper of the data on this, say a little bit more. But two things to be aware of are, one, some people on the board have a lot more bandwidth for this than others. I think it's no accident that our retired teachers and Che Rhymefest-Smith, who's independent, are able to get out to a lot of individual schools where other board members who work day jobs and have 4 or 5 kids, it's harder for them to do it. So there's some reality in these numbers that needs to be acknowledged. At the same time, board members having a presence at the schools in their district helps them to know what's going on. It helps them build relationships with principals and communities. I know, for example, that board member Therese Boyle has said one of the things she looks for when she goes into schools is just what is the condition of the buildings? Are there repairs that are needed that maybe she can refer to somebody in central office? There's a lot of jockeying for like how fast can we get repairs done. It's helpful to have somebody being an advocate for the schools in their community, and so like that is something that the school visits can signal.
I also think that, Maureen's talking about this through line to the classroom, but the other piece that really matters is what's helping board members make their decisions, right? And so we have a system of 600 schools, and if you're a typical retired teacher, maybe you've been in 4 or 5 of them with a decent amount of time. If you're a parent, maybe 3 or 4. And so your decisions and what you know is really based upon this very small set of schools and experiences that might be quite dated at this point. And so what I really see from these folks who are getting into schools is they're actually starting to listen to and hear, what are the very different experiences people can have in school across our city. And so it's really important that they're kind of able to start to realize that there's what they've experienced, and then now their job is to think about everyone. I think the other thing that we note in the report card isn't just are they going, but are they going alone or are they going with other people? Because as they're making decisions, as they're wrestling with policies, there's this opportunity to actually sit there and say, hey, we were both in that school together. We saw learning that looked like this, or needs that these young people had, or infrastructure challenges. How do we make that happen, right? And so it gives them a common anchor to really think about what are the policy implications for their work, for real teachers, real principals, real schools that they've been in.
And I guess building on that, like your analysis of last quarter of 2025, it shows a pretty startling trend. You break discussion time into like 3 core buckets, right? It's governance, adult priorities, and student learning. Yeah, I'm curious, what's the data show us on student learning? Actually talk about what happens in the classroom. Is it, given it's the smallest bucket out of the work that kind of came out of your report?
And I hope that Maureen will join me on this one and kind of talk about some of the research she's done about what school leadership looks like and where learning might fit in with the board. When we think about our particular board, one of our challenges is we aren't really clear yet on what's that North Star around what do we want in terms of learning. We've launched a 5-year plan recently that has some good stuff in it, and it would definitely be one of those kitchen sink plans that has everything in it, right? Like I've pulled out the measures, and you could not track all of these things in a year, and I'm somebody who's pretty good at tracking things. And so for the board to really say, this is what really matters for student learning. We're going to put a marker in the sand that we care about chronic absenteeism because kids need to be there, or we care about early literacy, whatever the thing is going to be, then they can really start to have conversations around how does this decision impact that particular measure. So we haven't seen a lot of that yet. I think part of it is we got to get clear about the learning that we want, and we have a board that's learning how to be a board. This has been their first year. This is our first year doing it as a city.
Right. And then I would just add that this is not what we see in this data, that governance and adult priorities are dominating and student learning is like the least discussed area. That's not unusual among school boards around the country. There is a movement sparked by a former Kansas City school board member to try to encourage boards to bring the amount of time they spend talking about student learning and outcomes up to 50%. That's like a North Star goal. That's a big jump from where most school boards are, and it acknowledges the realities that school boards do have to cover a lot of ground other than student learning. They have to deal with contracts, they have to deal with food service, they have to deal with buses. Like all the operational stuff is under their purview, and it's totally legitimate that they spend time on it. But at the same time, the buck stops with the school board for the performance of the CEO, for how budget priorities are set. And if learning is not part of that conversation, then priorities won't be aligned right, and money won't go where it's needed most.
And it gets to that point. I just want to keep us moving along. As we look ahead, actually, you name a couple of these pieces. Another factor that a lot of these board members have is that they're also running for office. Previously, we saw in the last, half election, if you will, with half board members being elected, we saw $13 million in campaign spending For the ordinary person watching CAN TV right now, the parent who wants to run because they care about their local school, like, do they actually have a chance against that kind of money?
Well, the surprising answer is maybe they have an even better chance than they did last time. Adam, I'm going to fact check with you. About 30% of our current board's elected members managed to do it without
significant dollars. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
The least expensive race was about $50,000, if I recall. And this time the districts will be half as large. So we had 10 districts. We're now breaking into 20. And that means that each person running has half as many people to knock doors and half as many people to send mailers to. So the actual cost of running the race should be cheaper.
And Adam, you analyzed, kind of align with this, right? There's also kind of like the board dynamics, and you've analyzed like who's doing the talking during board meetings. You found that, CTU line members dominated 73% of the discussion in board meetings. Like, what are the big issues that you think candidates are going to have to answer for as we look ahead to the upcoming election cycle?
Yeah. So I think that first and foremost, hopefully we're still focusing this conversation on student learning, right? Like, I think one thing that you hear regularly are that Chicago is a district that's made a lot of improvement, right? That we have record graduation rates. We have significant improvement in terms of what kids know and are able to do. And if you go into our schools, there are still a lot of schools and a lot of gaps where kids are not getting everything that they need. And so while the board has to deal with things like a superintendent search or, figuring out their governance model, I know that they're going to be asked a lot on, if you're in my neighborhood, I'm going to say, what are you doing for my baby? And what are you doing for the babies around us here? And I know they're going to get that everywhere across the city.
Right, but what that looks like from community to community will be different. I will just say I was on the phone with a mom in the back of the yards neighborhood literally an hour before I came to this conversation. And the first thing she said is, I want to know that every school in my neighborhood has a plan for what happens if ICE shows up at the door. And right now, I don't think I know that. And I know that the district has put out a lot about that, but there's a big gap between the information that's out on a website and the information that's actually in communities. So that said, what I am gathering about the key issues that people in the communities will be asking about are safety. Charter schools will be an issue, and what are people's positions on charters? And then just the basics. We're back to who is this board member? What did you do? If you're the incumbent, what did you do for the last 2 years? If you're new, who are you and why should I vote for you? I mean, there's going to be very basic, just get to know you will be essential.
So to close this out, I'm curious if you can both share just very high level, what's one of the governance kind of like habits that you think this new larger board is going to have to really lean into to be successful?
Well, we both were talking about this before. Number one is use committee structure. It's a lot easier to get stuff done when there's smaller teams taking a task than the whole board trying to do everything at once.
I'd say the other thing is they've got to get that governance thing right, where they're really focusing on what are the 2 to 4 things that the board's going to be good at, what they're going to know how to do, and track on it every single meeting.
Amazing. Well, Maureen and Adam, thank you sincerely for helping to get this critical information out to the parents and other key stakeholders. I look forward to having you back to continue the conversation. Darrious?
Adrian, thank you. On the other side of the break, Center for New Horizons CEO Lakisha McFadden joins Monica to discuss how her organization is working to create stability for Chicago families. Stay with us.
Tonight, we're bringing together experts, advocates, caregivers, and older adults to talk honestly about what it means to age in Chicago today.
How do we stay mentally and physically strong as we age? And what can our community do to make aging something we embrace, not fear?
When we start to have mobility changes, that impacts how we live every day.
If they are experiencing signs and symptoms of what could be Alzheimer's disease, what they may tend to do is withdraw from their loved ones.
Just small exercise during commercial breaks. So if you're watching TV for 4, 5, 6 hours a day, when a commercial break comes on, spend 20 seconds or 30 seconds just marching in place or standing up, sitting down.
State of Aging, a community conversation. Tuesday, March 10th at 7 p.m. only on CAN TV 19. Experience the power of community television.
For many families on Chicago's South Side, stability means more than a paycheck. It means access to mental health care, family support, and services that meet people where they are. Joining us is Lakisha McFadden, President and CEO of Centers for New Horizon. Under her leadership, the organization has strengthened its role as a trusted community anchor, supporting children, families, and adults, navigating housing instability, economic stress, and mental health challenges. Welcome to the Newsroom, Lakisha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
From your vantage point on the South Side, how are housing instability and mental health challenges showing up together for our families you serve?
From our vantage point, families that are experiencing housing instability and mental health challenges, these challenges show up together. They go hand in hand. When a family is experiencing that instability, it sends them into chronic stress. And that chronic stress shows up as anxiety and depression. We see that in families, and we see behavior challenges in children. So when your housing is unstable, everything else in the household also seems unstable.
Centers for New Horizon has a long wraparound approach. Why is it so important to address mental health, family stability, and economic stress together rather than in silos?
Yes, that's a great question. So we take the wraparound approach because families rarely experience challenges in isolation. So while a family may come to us needing support for employment or parenting support, what we find is when we peel back those layers, the economic stressors contribute to housing instability. That contributes to their mental health. That affects how you show up as a parent. So all of those challenges are connected. So we must treat the solution has to also treat everything. We found that we find better outcomes when we are servicing the family's unit as a whole. So that approach has been working for us.
I love the holistic approach that you offer. We often talk about homelessness as something visible, but many working families are struggling quietly. What does that hidden instability look like in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, this is something we see often. On a day-to-day basis, we find that there are working mothers that are working daily, working hard, but they are living with relatives because they're unable to secure a lease. This shows up when families are having to make that tough decision. Do we pay the utility bill or do we have enough to buy groceries? This is when that consistent family support is needed, because once you build that trust with the family, they start to really share with you what's going on. And from there, we are able to ensure that we connect them with the appropriate resources.
I love the consistency in that support and showing up. Can you share an example of how consistent mental health or family support can change outcomes for someone facing housing insecurity?
Yeah, an example that I can think of is, I love telling this story. It was when a woman came to us, enrolled in our home visiting program. Through her consistent family engagement, she was able to enroll in our workforce development program. She enrolled in Teach Up, and she was able to obtain her basic child care certification. From that, we employed her. She became a classroom teacher. She went back to school. She now has her degree, and she's working with families that has experienced that same challenge. And so it's been such a joy to watch that full circle moment, to see someone that benefited from our services be able to share that same experience back. It has been such a joy to watch, and we are so proud of her.
And giving families the opportunity to pay it forward.
Yes.
I love it, Lakisha. What role do trusted community-based organizations play that larger systems sometimes can't, especially during the moments of crisis?
Yes, community-based organizations like us, we are that trusted voice and ally of the community. We are rooted in the communities that we serve, so families trust us. They answer the phone when we call. And when there is a crisis, they trust that we can help them navigate. Half of the battle of navigating the crisis is really understanding how to connect and understand the resource that may be available to you. So we view ourselves as that anchor, as that bridge to ensure that we help the families navigate and connect them with the appropriate resources.
I love the allies and having the connection to
We're the
the
allies.
resources. It's a collaborative effort and it's a heavy lift, and we
Yes,
all
it is.
need to do it together. As a public resource remains strained, what gaps are you most concerned about from the Southside families right now?
Oh, I don't know that we have enough time to talk about all of my concerns. But one that keeps me up at night is programs and services funding is at risk. And so if a program, like programs that we offer, those services are defunded, the situations, the challenges don't go away. So the families still are going to experience that struggle, and it's a ripple effect. So not only will that affect those families, the staff that are employed with us are also affected. And oftentimes they are residents of the communities we serve, their parents, their caregivers, and now they could be forced into some sort of destabilization. And so I think it's important for us all to understand that this ecosystem, if we want to have strong communities, we have to fund the ecosystem that is making this whole thing run. So the community supporters have to be able to do that. And so funding being at risk is keeping me up at night for so many different reasons.
Well, we thank you for being here to create that awareness. For viewers who want to support or access services, what should they know about Centers for New Horizons and how do they connect?
Oh, all right. So Centers for New Horizons, we exist to help families that have already experienced some sort of destabilizing barrier. We are there to help them restabilize and become self-reliant. We have been doing this work on the South Side for 55 years. That is a long line of legacy and impact, and we are so excited about our future. So if you want to help us continue with that legacy, you can go to cnh.org, and our website will be able to show you how you can partner or donate. And if you're a family that needs support, you can connect with our family support specialists there as well.
Lakisha, thank you for being here tonight, and congratulations on 55 years of service.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
On the other side of the break, Forefront President and CEO Monique Jones shares some thoughts about her journey living with MS. Opinion is next.
Got something to say about Chicago? Now's your chance to be heard. Chicago Newsroom 2.0 is launching Opinion, a new segment where everyday Chicagoans take the mic. Whether it's a neighborhood issue that's been ignored, a citywide concern that needs attention, or a fresh idea that could change our city, we want to hear from you. Submit your commentary at cantv.org/opinion. If selected, we'll invite you on air to share your perspective with all of Chicago. Experience the power of community television.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. Can TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
Here to share her thoughts on her journey living with MS is Forefront President and CEO Monique Jones.
Multiple sclerosis affects far more than we can see. And too often, that invisibility leaves people living with MS misunderstood, overlooked, or unsupported. I am one of nearly 1 million people in the United States who live with MS, a chronic and often unpredictable disease of the central nervous system. Chances are, you know someone affected by it. Yet many people still associate MS only with mobility challenges, not realizing how deeply it can affect vision, cognition, energy, mental health, and independence. Because so many of these symptoms aren't visible, people living with MS are often told they look fine. But looking fine doesn't mean feeling fine. MS can quietly disrupt careers, strain families, and reshape daily life in ways that others may never see. I believe awareness matters because misunderstanding has consequences. Living with MS requires more than resilience or determination. It requires access to consistent medical care, emotional and mental health support, accurate information, and strong community connections. It also requires understanding from employers willing to accommodate, from friends who listen without judgment, and from communities prepared to learn. Organizations like the National MS Society, Greater Illinois, Indiana chapter help make that possible. Their work supports people affected by MS today while advancing research toward a future without this disease. Without that kind of support, too many individuals and families will be left out to navigate MS on their own. I have lived with MS for more than 6 years, and while most days I look fine, MS is always present in my body. What helps most is having access to care and being surrounded by people who are willing to learn and stand with me. MS awareness means making the invisible visible, replacing skepticism with compassion, and strengthening the support systems people with MS rely on every day. Making MS visible starts with simple actions: learning more, listening closely, believing people when they share their experiences, and showing up in meaningful ways. It also means supporting research, advocacy, and awareness efforts to move us closer to a cure. I am Monique Jones, and that's my opinion.
We want to hear from you, Chicago. Got an opinion on a topic you've been wanting to get off your chest? CAN TV is the place to do it. Share your opinion with us in 250 words or less. If your submission is selected, we'll invite you to join on air to present your perspective to the entire city.
A few programming notes. On Tuesday, March 10th, CAN TV will re-air the special program State of Aging, a Community Conversation at 7 p.m. on Cable Channel 19 and streaming online at cantv.org and on the CAN TV Plus app. As Chicago's population continues to age, one of the most pressing questions facing our city is how we ensure that older adults are not just living longer, but living better, healthier, and more connected lives. State of Aging is a conversation you won't want to miss.
And next Thursday, March 12th, the Newsroom returns with guest co-hosts Suzette McKinney and Maria Doty, and featured guest Illinois Speaker of the House Chris Welch and National Health Equity expert Victor Legrun.
And as always, Chicago, thank you for making time for CAN TV and Chicago Newsroom 2.0 in your very busy day. Monica Rubio, hostess with the mostest, thank you so much for saying yes, for being here and guest co-hosting Newsroom with me today.
Thank you. It was a ball.
Good. You're going to come back?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Until next time, Chicago, be well and well informed.